Good evening, all of you. First and foremost, all of you are warmly welcome for the TechStrike webinar series. As well as, I would be much thankful to all of you for participating here today. Not only for today, I'm expecting this participation will be continued throughout the webinar series. So today's session will be about an introduction on web development. Actually, guys, what is web development? I also have some sort of idea, and I think most probably you are also having ideas. So let's see. I invite again all of you to maintain your participation till the very end and polish your knowledge. As a reminder, there will be a Q&A session at the last 20 minutes for anyone who needs to ask questions regarding this area, and feel free to ask any question from the presenter. So now it's time for welcome our presenter. So today's session will be conducted by Mr. Chandim Ratnayaka, and currently he is a senior full stack developer and at the same time a project manager at LeafyCode. So I'm kindly inviting you, Mr. Chandima, to be continued today's session. So over to you, Mr. Chandima.
Thank you, Saimini, for inviting this webinar series as the first one. So you start with a very good question. Guys, do you know what is web development? Actually, you said that I actually don't know anything about that. So let's see. Are you guys know about things on web development, or you guys do not know anything about web development? So let's start this session. So today I'm not going to talk anything about very in brief things, but the things that industry oriented things that you need to know how to create a web application or a web design. Else, the things that you need to know, you should avoid when you designing web application. So let's start the session. And okay, today I'm going to talk about few different things in very brief as well as large. So as the first thing, I'm going to talk about what is web development. Then tools of web development. What are the things you need to do, need to know to create a web application? Then our very first guest, introduction to HTML with its brief history. Then about CSS, then about JavaScript, and finally there will be a summarize. After that, you will have a fun event because I'm going to create a different web application. Actually, that's not a web application. I'm going to create some simple cards and it's going to be responsive. It works on your mobile phone or a tablet computer or laptop or any large screen. And that will be our practical session. Finally, I will give you some resources to follow that. And those resources are very well things because I already know, because I believe that I learned most of things from them. And I believe you will learn many things from them. So yes, this is me, and I love to create web applications. So I'm currently working in a startup, and it's called LeafyCode, and I'm a full stack dev as well as a project manager. And I like to play with different kinds of JavaScript frameworks like React, Next, Svelte, React Native, and that things. And I'm doing some backend things using GraphQL, Hasura GraphQL, and AWS. Finally, I have published few research papers based on artificial intelligence and computer graphic cards. So let's move to the first part of our session. And as the question, I'm going to ask you again, what is web development? But in here, I have mentioned some 2 points. First one is the tasks associated with creating, building, and maintaining websites and web applications. Is it true? Yes, web designing is creating something to show another person using a web window. Or as you always know, Google Chrome, Microsoft Internet Explorer, or else now it's called Edge, then Mozilla Firefox, Opera browser. There are so many browsers. If you're creating web application, you can show to another one using a web window. In simply, you can use Microsoft Edge or else Google Chrome. So that is a web application. But the question is, Actually, it's only a simple one thing. It's a big not, because when you're creating a web application or a website, we have to think about two things. First one is front-end development, and the second one is back-end development. So when you're creating a front-end development task, it's meaning you create the presentation layer, like in this presentation. You are creating something to see in a web window in the presentation layer, and it's the thing that the user going to interact with. But backend is another important thing, because when you're creating a backend for a web application, you can do such things in your presentation layer, in the front end layer. But so many things happen in the backend according to the things that you have done in the front end. So this is a big thing, but I believe that you all will learn how to create a simple web application. I'm not going to say after this session, because this is just a brief one for you. But if you're going to practice on this, I believe that you will definitely be a good web developer or a web application developer. So let's think about how to create this thing. So first of all, you should have a plan. You should have a very good plan. Then you must create a design, because all web applications or all websites have a unique design, a specific design. Then you should know the things that you need to create a web application. So in here it mentioned Java, CSS3, PHP, and HTML5. Let's talk about later. Then testing. If you're creating anything, any software or any engineering project, they always test their thing. Because if you browse on YouTube, you can see if when cars are checked, cars are testing on their test grounds. So they believe that after the testing, they can create the best perfect output for the user. Like that, when creating a web application, you must have a step for testing, because the guys who are trying to browse that website, your one, they are not going to like with the website with bugs. They never use that thing. So you must test it. Then delivery. Delivery means if you are a worker for some client, then you must sell it to him. And finally, the maintenance. Maintaining is such a big thing, such a different thing, such a risky thing, because maintenance happen when the original website is deploying somewhere else. So you must do the thing you should do when maintenance. So that is the life cycle. I can say life cycle, or I can say the process. Likewise, this is the major steps that you need to create a web application or anything in your life. Then this is the most important thing of today's session, because these are the tools that you need to create such a web application or a website. So if you are going to become a front-end developer, you must have a knowledge on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the most fundamentals of web designing. Then such frameworks like React, Vue, Angular, and Bootstrap, Material U, and Tailwind CSS. Those things are using to create some styles on your web page. Then moving to the backend development, you need to have knowledge on JavaScript, a very good knowledge, then PHP, then SQL, MySQL, Node.js, and AWS. It's Amazon AWS is a cloud platform. Then GraphQL, Hasura, Hasura and Java. Then we can move into the introduction part to HTML. So as I said, I'm not going to say such a big thing on the past to present. I'm not going to say this, and I'm sorry about that, because I need to do some different thing to tell you this is designing, this is the thing that you want in your life, not the past. We do not need history right now. So HTML is a markup language. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So now I have a question, what is markup language? I don't know about that. I found a good definition on Wikipedia. Markup language refers to a text encoding system consisting of a set of symbols inserted in a text document. What's that? Yes, you have the answer. When you are creating a web page using HTML, it's a set of tags. It's a set of text. It's not such a big thing. Like I believe that you know about Java or Python or C++. I know when you're creating a Java or Python or C++ function, it's a mess. But it has its own structure. Like that, when you're creating an HTML page, it has its own structure. I will teach you later, but keep in mind. Then, the HTML thing was found by Tim Berners-Lee in 1993, who was a scientist at ARPANET. And I believe that you guys learn those things in your on your O-levels or A-levels. It's okay. If you don't know, just Google it and find the real answer. There are so many solutions and there are so many resources for you. Then like everything, it has so many versions. So the version 1 was released in 1993, the 2 in 1995, 3 in 1997. Then there was a version called 4.1 and it's based on 3.0 and its updated version. And finally, in 2012, they released HTML 5.0. Now most users are going to use HTML5 because it's the latest one and it's the easiest one to use. And the presentation layer of the web page, it means you're creating a web page to show someone, not for yourself, not for your family. So it's a presentation layer. You are creating the presentation layer with HTML. And finally, when you're creating HTML file, it has its own file format. So we call it .html or .htm. But recent years, I never saw anyone who tried to create a HTML file with .htm format. Most of the guys are using .html format because it's mentioned that it's telling us it's HTML file. Yes, that's true. Next, oh yes, always I told that there's a structure to create a web page. And this is the structure. When you're creating a web page, you have to use tags or you have to use elements. By the way, these two things, tags or element, both are same. Different people use different terms, so both are same. You can call it as a tag or you can call it as an element. So whatever, it's a tag or element, you have to do something. When you're creating a tag, you have to use those brackets. If you if you're not using those brackets, it's not a tag. So you must have an open tag. You must have a close tag with that backslash. Or I'll say you can say you must have an element or you must have elements with starting element and the closing element. Yes. I know that you have several questions. What is this guy talking about? Yeah, I'm going to come to that point right now. When you're creating a web page, you must have a very brief knowledge how I'm going to use these tags. What are those tags? Okay, there are two different types or the two main types of those kind of tags. Yes, you can see it's block tags or inline tags. Again, a question. Why they are called block tags? Why they are called inline tags? Sure. This will give you an answer. Block tags are tags which always starts on a new line and adds some space before and after the element. That means in this example photograph, in this slide, you can see there is a tag called body and it wrapped some h1 tag and a p tag. In here, body is a block tag because it wraps some code block under itself. Then I'm going to talk about inline tags. Inline tags, as it mentioned its name, they cannot do such kind of a thing. They cannot create a code block on itself. They are just some tag which use only the space that it required. So the inline element always take the length of its line. It's not going to it's not going to jump into another line. But if you can do it on your code base. That means you're called editor, and it's okay to do, but these tags generally don't have any such things. So as examples on that, anchor tags for linking web pages or HTML links, web addresses, anchor tags, you are using to do that. Then span tags, quote tags, button, text areas, those are inline elements or inline tags. Then address, paragraph, header tags, that's going to start from H1 to H6, like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. And UL tags for unordered list, then div tags, and final section tags. But these are not the ones you must need to know, but there are several more than these tags. There are hundreds of tags. You can learn them by searching on Google or reading books. It's okay to you. Use your own method. Then this is the basic structure of a web page. I told you that there's a way to do that. There's a way to do this one. There's a way to do create this kind of a thing. So this is the basic structure. When you're creating a web page, you must mention it's a HTML page. So you must start from HTML tag. Then you must end with HTML tag. Then there's a tag, a block element or a block tag called head. It wraps the web page title under itself. Title means the title. When title means the title, you can see when you are create a star going to your the web browser, and you are going to click that plus icon on there. So it will create a new tab. So new tab denotes what is its name. So if it's a new tab, it's a new tab. That's the title of the web page. Then I'm going to move into the body part. Body is used to wrap everything on your presentational layer, because the things are in between the head tags are not going to show on your presentation layer. That means the window of the web application with the white space or any color. I don't mind there is a color or not. Then in this code says under the body tag, it says there is a header tag that calls h1, and this is my first web page. Then a paragraph tag to say that this is paragraph. So let's see what's the real output of this one and the practical session. Till then, just keep in mind there's a structure to create a HTML page. Okay, I believe that you have just a good understanding on HTML, but please, after this session, please do some homework to find what is this and what this guy is trying to tell us. Okay, so let's move into CSS. Like HTML, again, CSS stands for a name. So it's called as Cascading Styling Sheets. Yes, again, its name stands for Cascading Styling Sheet. It's going to use to style your HTML page. Yes, it's going to use to style your HTML page. Like HTML, CSS was invented in 1996. I believe that some of you guys were born on that year. Yeah. So then there are so many versions. Then the version 1 is released in 1996, then 2 in 1998, and 3 in 1999. But there's a difference between CSS2, CSS1, and CSS3. Because in CSS3, you can add some animations, you can add some responsiveness to your web application without any condition. You can use anything you want using CSS3. If you need to see the difference between those two things, just try to find a website on 1999, 1994, 1995, 1996 and compare it with the recent one. You can see so many differences between those two websites. Then again, this CSS have its own file format. It's called .css. Yes, CSS don't have any another aliases for its name, its file format. It's just CSS. And when you are going to add some CSS to your presentational layer, that means your HTML page, there are two different methods to apply CSS. So you can add your CSS within the HTML tag. It's working fine. It's very good to use. But believe that when you are going to create a big file, think about a web HTML page with thousands of lines, and you need to apply thousands of effects. So this inline thing, it's not going to work, but it's still working, but it's a mess because you need to add styles for header tag. If there are thousands of headers at tags, you are going to create such a mess, big mess, because you need to add every CSS style for every HTML h tags, header tags. As a solution for this, we can use a separate CSS file. We can call it style.css, or you can use any name. If you want to use my name, just do it. Chandiman.css, it's fine. And if you are going to use your name, it's fine. But there is some set of rules. If you are going to say this is this kind of a file, you must use that specific name. So if you are going to create such a big thing, you must follow those rules. But if you are going to create some small one, it's better if you can use any name or anything, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good practice. Just follow those rules because they are trying to tell us, please use this rule, because if you use this rule, you are not going to face any trouble in your future, because always we are practicing. Then with that practice, we are simply use the specific thing to rename those files. It's a general example. So it's a general thing. So when creating a CSS file, most of the time uh, tell its name as style.css or styles.css. Yes, it's okay to use any name, but just know that there are some sort of rules in renaming files. Okay, we have talked about two things. First, HTML, the presentation layer of the presentation layer of web page, the structure of the web page. Then about CSS. Let's think this overall scenario like this way. Think you have a dummy. I believe that you all know what's dummy. It's a structure. We are wearing some clothes on that one and demonstrate for the clients. You must see everywhere these days. So like a dummy, we are creating the dummy using HTML. Then we are style the dummy using CSS. And what is this JavaScript? JavaScript is used to add some functions to the dummy. Yes, to that web page. So if you want to work, if you want to run on that dummy, if you need to run that dummy itself, you can create a function. Like you are creating functions in Java, CSS, sorry, Java, then C++. There are functions, there are classes, there are enums, there are interfaces, so many things. But don't think about that. You can learn those things in future. But the simple idea is JavaScript is used to add some functions to a web page. So I believe that you all have Facebook accounts. If your friend posts a new photo, you are going to touch or click on that like button. Yes, it's a button. When you click on that button, there's a function under that button. So when you're creating that button, the button says to the database, this guy clicked on me, this guy pressed on me, and I should increment the count of likes of the real owner of the post. So it's a such kind of function. If you're going to log into the Facebook, you must need to input your username and your password, and you are going to click on that login button. The login button says to the system, hello, this guy clicked on me, this guy pressed on me. You must check the entered username and password are correct. Are they matched or not? If they match, that guy says, okay, this username and passwords are matching with each other. So let's give access this guy's web page, this guy's Facebook account. Likewise, JavaScript used to create or add some functions to a web application or the web page. Like I said, what is JavaScript? And I said that it handles complex functions and features, not complex. Always it handles simple to complex functions. JavaScript is invented by Brandon Eich in 1995. Actually, JavaScript was born to develop the Netscape 2 browser. It's a very old browser. I believe that you know anything about that browser. In 1997, the JavaScript got the ECMA 262 standard. And after that, JavaScript create a partnership with Mozilla to develop new browsers based on the Netscape 2 browser. So if you learn some in IT on your OLs and ALs, I know you know that. But Mozilla is the first browser which suits for the standard in these browsers. It's very good, very fast, very light browser, and I believe it's a good browser. So after the Mozilla and JavaScript partnerships, the Mozilla Corporation is trying to develop so much fast, so much super web browsers. And as a result of this Mozilla JavaScript partnership, today we have tons of browsers with different speeds, different user levels, and that was the result of that Mozilla and JavaScript partnership. Then, like in the other two formats, other two HTML and CSS things, JavaScript also had so many versions, so many releases. The first ES1, ECMA Standard 1, was released in 1997. After that, so many releases were out. Final release was EC6. So it was released in 2015, and this is the big deal. Today, the most popular version is ES6 because these days I think you know that there are so many frameworks, so many libraries like React, Next, Material Library. There's a library called Bulma for and some CSS to your web applications. Then Tailwind CSS, Vue.js, AngularJS, Next.js, Nux.js, then Nux.js. Yes, they are fancy names. So those frameworks are based on JavaScript. Most of the things are based on these ES6 versions. So that's the power of JavaScript. But I'm sorry to say, you guys, today I'm not going to talk about bunch of things about JavaScript. Just a brief introduction because I believe that for today's demonstration, I do not need any JavaScript. Because if I'm going to teach you or teach you JavaScript or tell you what is JavaScript, I believe that it will take more than 10 years. Yes, it's a very big thing. Never think about that. But please do some your own research, do some homework, find that why this Brendan Knight guy invented JavaScript and what can we do using JavaScript. Yes, that's your today's homework. So I believe that you will do some research after this one and find some answers. Or else if you have questions, just put it as a message or at the end of this session, there will be Q&A and you can ask any question from me. Or else you can put your message on the chat box and Miss Emily can tell them to me and I will give you answers. So finally, I'm going to summarize today's things. First, I told you I was talk about something called HTML. That's hypertext markup language. We used it to create a structure. Then I have talked about a thing called CSS, cascading styling sheets. They used to add some styles to the website. Now I know that you have a question. This man said we can use HTML to create a structure, like in the previous example the basic view of basic HTML of a web page. Then I had talked about styling the web using CSS. Yes, there are so many things rather than CSS. You can use SCSS, you can use something called LESS, LESS. Those are the things related to CSS based on the CSS 3.0. You can use any of these things, but CSS is the base of them. Finally, I talked about JavaScript. Is you going to use for create some functions, create some features, different things you can do using JavaScript. That's the summary. That's the summary of today's theoretical part.